Today, we are delving into the philosophical insights of Karl Popper, specifically his often discussed views on religion. Our discussion is based on an article exploring how this influential philosopher, best known for his work on the philosophy of science, engaged with matters of faith and belief. Eloise, Popper is famous for falsifiability, but how did that principle inform his personal stance on religion?
That's an excellent starting point, Noah. The article highlights that Popper's approach to religion was complex. He wasn't an atheist, nor was he religious in a conventional sense. He explicitly stated, "I don't know whether God exists or not," positioning himself as an agnostic. Crucially, he found dogmatic atheism as arrogant as dogmatic religious belief, rejecting any position that claimed absolute certainty. He also expressed a dislike for organized religion, particularly when it seemed to use God's name in vain. He even noted that religious statements might be more humble than atheist pronouncements.
So he was critical of dogma across the board, whether secular or religious. But how did his central concept of falsifiability, which distinguishes scientific theories from non-scientific ones, apply to religious claims? Did he consider them inherently unscientific?
He certainly did. Popper used falsifiability to draw a clear line between science and non-science. He argued that theories which cannot, in principle, be disproven by observation or experiment are not scientific. Many religious or creationist claims fall into this category for him. While he didn't necessarily dismiss them as irrational in every sense, he firmly stated they are not scientific because they are unfalsifiable. They simply don't operate within the realm of empirical testing.
That distinction is key, and it's interesting because the article mentions his view of Darwinism as a metaphysical research program, rather than a strictly testable scientific theory. Can you unpack that a bit and how it relates to his views on religion?
Certainly. Popper saw Darwinism as a powerful framework that guides scientific research and theory development, providing a broad explanation for biological phenomena. It offers a context for specific scientific theories, but as a sweeping explanation of life's diversity, he didn't consider it directly falsifiable in the same way a specific hypothesis might be. He believed it held a similar overarching explanatory power to older theistic explanations, yet it clearly differed from them by guiding empirical inquiry. It's a subtle but important nuance, showing he recognized the value of overarching frameworks, even if they weren't strictly scientific in his sense. The article points out this allowed him to view it favorably, as a fruitful program, even while questioning its scientific status.
So he appreciated the intellectual scaffolding it provided. Given his emphasis on critical rationalism, how did he suggest one should approach religious ideas? Was it about outright dismissal or something more nuanced?
His emphasis was on a rational attitude, characterized by openness to criticism and learning from experience. This extended to religious ideas. While he applied his scientific criteria to distinguish testable claims, he didn't advocate for dismissing all religious thought as irrational. Instead, his philosophy encouraged a critical examination of all ideas, including those from religion, without necessarily rejecting them if they served a different, non-scientific purpose or framework. He saw value in religion for moral guidance and personal meaning, provided it was not presented as established scientific fact.
That's a very consistent application of his broader philosophical outlook. The article also briefly touches on his Jewish background. How much do we know about that influencing his perspectives?
He was born to assimilated Jewish parents who later converted to Lutheranism. While this personal history likely shaped his worldview to some extent, the article emphasizes that Popper's arguments regarding religion were primarily philosophical and methodological, rather than strictly autobiographical or theological. His focus remained on the logical and epistemological boundaries between different forms of knowledge and belief.
It sounds like Popper, throughout his engagement with religion, was fundamentally concerned with rationality, the limits of knowledge, and the distinct methods of scientific inquiry versus other belief systems. He viewed religion as a significant cultural and philosophical force, but one that operated outside the falsifiable domain of science. Thank you, Eloise, for shedding light on Karl Popper's nuanced perspective on such a complex topic.
Karl Popper frequently mentioned religion, primarily through his philosophy of science and rationality, viewing organized religion critically but expressing agnosticism about God's existence, rejecting dogmatic atheism, and seeing some religious claims as unfalsifiable and thus non-scientific. He debated the boundaries between science and faith, considering Darwinism a metaphysical framework rather than a strict scientific theory, and often contrasting scientific method with theological claims. Key aspects of Popper's views on religion: agnosticism and rejection of dogma. Popper stated, "I don't know whether God exists or not," and found dogmatic atheism arrogant, although he also disliked organized religion using God's name in vain. Science versus theology. He used his criterion of falsifiability to distinguish science from non-science, arguing that unfalsifiable theories aren't scientific, even if they serve as metaphysical frameworks. Metaphysical research programs. Popper viewed Darwinism as a powerful metaphysical research program that guided scientific theories, rather than being a testable theory itself, which distinguished it from older theistic explanations. Rationality and openness, he promoted a rational attitude of openness to criticism and learning from experience, which extended to critically examining religious ideas without necessarily dismissing them outright as irrational. Jewish background, born to assimilated Jewish parents who converted to Lutheranism, Popper's personal background likely influenced his views, though he focused on philosophical rather than strictly religious arguments. In essence, Popper engaged with religion as a significant cultural and philosophical force, analyzing its methods, claims, and relationship to scientific inquiry, often highlighting where faith and unfalsifiable belief systems diverge from the scientific endeavor.